Rain hammered the city all night. Most people stayed inside. The streets near Blackridge Avenue were empty. At 2:13 a.m., the emergency call reached dispatch. A woman whispered through heavy breathing. "They're inside the walls." The dispatcher asked for her location. The woman cried softly, "You have to hurry." A loud banging sound exploded behind her. The woman screamed. Then the line went dead. Dispatch traced the call to Ashmore Apartments. The building had been abandoned for 15 years. Detective Marcus Hales stared at the address in silence. Officer Daniels looked confused. That place was condemned. Marcus grabbed his coat. Someone made the call. 4 officers arrived outside the building 20 minutes later. Rainwater dripped down the broken windows. The apartment tower stood like a dead monument in the dark. Most of the windows were black, but one light flickered near the top floor. Officer Ramirez noticed it immediately. "You see that?" Marcus nodded slowly. The front gate creaked open by itself. The officers exchanged nervous looks. Daniels forced a laugh. "Probably the wind." Nobody answered him. The lobby smelled like mold and wet concrete. Dust covered the floor, but fresh muddy footprints led toward the stairs. Marcus crouched beside them. Someone was here recently. The team climbed slowly toward the 3rd floor. Every step echoed through the empty building. Somewhere above them, a door slammed shut. The officers stopped instantly. Ramirez raised his flashlight. "Did you hear that?" Another sound followed. Footsteps. Slow footsteps moving directly above them. Marcus gripped his weapon tighter. The footsteps suddenly stopped. Silence filled the building again. Then a woman's voice whispered softly through the darkness. "Please help me." The officers froze on the staircase. The woman's voice sounded weak, like she was standing only a few feet away. Marcus looked toward the hallway above them. 3rd floor. The team moved carefully through the darkness. Their flashlights swept across peeling wallpaper and broken doors. Most apartment numbers had fallen off years ago, but one door still had its number attached. 307. The whisper came again. "Help me!" Daniel stepped closer to the apartment. "The voice is inside." Marcus tried the handle. Locked. A heavy chain rattled softly from the other side. Ramirez frowned. "How is it chained from inside?" Another loud bang shook the apartment. Something heavy hit the floor. The woman suddenly screamed again. Marcus backed away from the door. "Break it down." Daniels and Ramirez slammed their shoulders into the wood. The old frame cracked instantly. One final hit sent the door flying open. The officers rushed inside with guns raised. The apartment was silent. Dust floated through the flashlight beams. Old furniture sat untouched beneath white sheets. The air smelled rotten. Marcus scanned every corner carefully. Nobody was there. Ramirez lowered his weapon slowly. "There's no one here." Daniels noticed something strange near the kitchen. Fresh footprints covered the dusty floor. Wet footprints. They moved through the apartment toward the bedroom. Marcus followed them carefully. The footprints stopped suddenly in front of the wall. No doorway, no window, just a cracked wall stained black with age. Daniels touched it slowly. Cold water dripped from the ceiling above him. Then Ramirez found something on a nearby shelf. A framed family photograph. He wiped dust away from the glass. His face turned pale immediately. Marcus walked closer. The photo showed a family standing inside this same apartment years earlier, but someone had scratched deep marks across one face in the picture. The scratched face looked exactly like Marcus. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Daniels whispered quietly, "How is that possible?" A sudden metallic sound echoed behind them. The apartment door slowly slammed shut by itself. The door slammed with enough force to shake the walls. Ramirez rushed toward it immediately. He pulled the handle hard. The door would not move. "It's stuck." Marcus walked back into the living room slowly. His eyes stayed fixed on the photograph. The scratched face still looked exactly like him. Older, but unmistakable. Daniels searched the apartment carefully. There has to be another exit. The officers spread through the rooms. Old dishes still sat inside kitchen cabinets. Rotten clothes hung inside the bedroom closet. Everything looked abandoned for decades, but fresh water dripped from the bathroom sink. Marcus entered the bedroom again. Something felt wrong. The room looked smaller now, like the walls had shifted slightly inward. Then he noticed scratch marks near the bookshelf. Deep lines cut across the wooden floor beneath it. "Help me move this." Daniels joined him. Together they shoved the shelf sideways. A hidden metal door appeared behind it. Ramirez stared in disbelief. "No way." Marcus pulled the handle slowly. The door groaned open. A narrow concrete corridor stretched into darkness underground. Cold air poured from inside. The smell reminded Marcus of wet earth and rusted metal. Daniels pointed his flashlight down the tunnel. Who built this? Static suddenly burst through the officers' radios. A voice crackled between the noise. Unit 7, officer down. The transmission sounded old and distorted. Then another voice screamed for help. Gunshots echoed faintly through the radio. Ramirez checked his device nervously. We're not receiving this from dispatch. Marcus stepped into the corridor. The walls were covered in old pipes and water stains. Fresh footprints continued deeper underground. The team followed them carefully. The tunnel twisted sharply beneath the building. Somewhere ahead, metal clanged softly in the dark. Daniels stopped near the wall suddenly. There's blood here. Fresh blood streaked across the concrete. Marcus touched it carefully, still wet. The temperature dropped lower as they moved deeper underground. Their breath became visible. The tunnel finally opened into a wider hallway. Marcus raised his flashlight toward the ceiling. His expression changed instantly. The hallway looked painfully familiar. Ramirez noticed it too. This can't be real. The underground hallway matched the basement corridor of their police station exactly. Nobody moved for several seconds. The underground hallway looked identical to the police station basement. The same grey walls, the same flickering ceiling lights. Even the old coffee stain near the corner was there. Daniels shook his head slowly. This isn't possible. Marcus walked forward carefully. Every step felt heavier now. The hallway stretched into darkness ahead of them. A buzzing sound came from one of the overhead lights. Then a door slammed somewhere nearby. The officers raised their weapons instantly. Ramirez pointed toward a metal door at the end of the corridor. It came from there. Marcus approached first. The door stood slightly open. A dim yellow light leaked through the gap. Someone was breathing inside the room. Fast, terrified breathing. Marcus pushed the door open slowly. The officers entered together. A man sat chained to a chair in the center of the room. His police uniform was stained with blood. His face remained lowered toward the floor. Daniels stepped forward carefully. Then he froze completely. The chained man lifted his head slowly. Everyone stared in horror. The prisoner looked exactly like Daniels. Same face, same scars, same uniform badge. Ramirez nearly lowered his gun in shock. What the hell? The chained man suddenly panicked. No! He kicked the chair backward violently. Stay away from me! Marcus grabbed him before he could escape. The prisoner fought desperately like a terrified animal. You're not real! Daniels backed against the wall, unable to speak. Marcus forced the prisoner still. Who are you? The man stared directly at Daniels. Fear filled both their faces. Then the prisoner whispered quietly. I'm Officer Daniels. Silence swallowed the room. The real Daniels shook his head instantly. No, no. The prisoner looked at Marcus desperately. You have to listen to me. Marcus tightened his grip. Explain this. The prisoner swallowed hard. You came through the apartment door, didn't you? Marcus said nothing. The prisoner's voice trembled. That means it already started. Ramirez frowned. Started what? The prisoner slowly looked around the room. His eyes filled with dread. You're trapped in the wrong version of the building. The room fell completely silent. The chained Daniels stared at them with exhausted eyes. Marcus stepped closer slowly. What does that mean? The prisoner laughed nervously. You still think this place is real? Daniels suddenly snapped. I am the real Daniels. The prisoner looked directly at him. So did I. Marcus pulled another chair across the floor. Start talking. The prisoner hesitated. Then he whispered quietly. The building copies people. Ramirez frowned immediately. That's impossible. The prisoner ignored him. It learns everything about you. Marcus studied his face carefully. Every movement matched Daniels perfectly. Even the small scar near his eyebrow was identical. The prisoner suddenly looked toward Ramirez. You still keep painkillers inside your locker. Ramirez's face turned pale. Nobody else knew that. Then the prisoner looked at Marcus. You never reported the Harper case evidence. Marcus froze instantly. Daniels stared at him in confusion. What's he talking about? Marcus said nothing. The prisoner continued softly. You buried the file after Officer Brennan killed that witness. Ramirez slowly looked toward Marcus now. Fear spread through the room. How do you know that? The prisoner lowered his eyes. Because you told me before. Daniels stepped backward. No. Marcus grabbed the prisoner's collar hard. Who are you? The prisoner looked terrified now. I already told you. Suddenly one of the radios crackled loudly. Dispatch called for Officer Daniels, but another voice answered first. A second Daniels. The room went dead silent again. Marcus slowly released the prisoner. Ramirez checked old files on a dusty computer nearby. The monitor flickered weakly to life. Rows of police reports appeared on the screen. Missing officer reports. Disappearances connected to Ashmore Apartments. Marcus stared closer. One photograph made his blood run cold. A police team from 1987 stood outside the building. Every officer looked identical to Marcus's team. Same faces, same names, same uniforms. Daniels whispered weakly, "That's us." More files appeared. 1994, 2003, 2011. Every missing team looked exactly the same. The prisoners' breathing became shaky. They all thought they were the originals, too. Then the lights suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. A distant scream echoed through the underground hallway. The scream echoed endlessly through the darkness. Ramirez raised his flashlight with shaking hands. The beam flickered weakly across the room. The chained prisoner was gone. Only the broken chair remained. Daniels stared at the empty space in horror. He was right here. Marcus grabbed his weapon tightly. "Move!" The officers rushed into the hallway. Cold air swept through the underground corridor. The police station hallway no longer looked normal. The walls seemed longer now. The ceiling lights buzzed like dying insects. Somewhere ahead, glass shattered loudly. Marcus followed the sound. The corridor opened into a massive underground chamber. Every wall was covered with mirrors. Hundreds of cracked mirrors stretched into darkness. Flashlight beams reflected endlessly around the room. Ramirez looked sick. "What is this place?" Marcus stepped carefully between the broken glass. His reflection stared back from every direction, but something felt wrong. One reflection moved half a second too late. Daniels noticed it too. "You saw that?" Marcus kept walking slowly. The mirrors began whispering softly. Faint voices crawled through the chamber. Some cried for help. Others laughed quietly. Ramirez turned in circles nervously. "The voices are everywhere." Marcus stopped beside a tall, cracked mirror. His reflection stared directly at him. Then it smiled. Marcus did not. He stepped backward instantly. The reflection whispered his name softly. "Marcus." Daniels raised his flashlight toward another mirror. Inside it, he saw himself standing alone in a dark room. Blood covered his hands. Then the reflection suddenly slammed both palms against the glass. Daniels stumbled away in panic. More reflections started moving independently now. Some walked closer from inside the mirrors. Others simply watched silently. Ramirez pointed toward the far end of the chamber. "There's a door." Before anyone could move, the lights above them exploded. Darkness crashed over the chamber. Daniels screamed somewhere nearby. His flashlight hit the floor loudly. Marcus turned instantly. "Daniels!" No answer came back. Only heavy breathing echoed through the dark. Then a terrible scream ripped through the chamber again. Much closer this time. Ramirez whispered fearfully. "That wasn't Daniels." Marcus grabbed Ramirez's arm immediately. "Find him." Their flashlights swept wildly across the chamber. Broken mirrors reflected endless moving shadows. Daniels was nowhere in sight. Then a faint groan echoed near the far doorway. Marcus rushed toward it. Daniels lay unconscious beside a metal door half buried in concrete. Blood trickled from the side of his head. Ramirez knelt beside him quickly. "He's alive." Marcus stared at the doorway. A dim white light glowed from the other side. The air beyond felt strangely warm. Marcus slowly pushed the door open. Both officers froze instantly. Beyond the doorway stood their police station. Not similar. Exactly identical. The front desk sat beneath flickering lights. Coffee cups rested beside stacks of paperwork. Phones rang endlessly somewhere deeper inside, but nobody answered them. The station was completely empty. Ramirez stepped inside first. This can't be real. Marcus walked slowly through the hallway. Everything looked normal. Every office, every chair, every stain on the floor. Then one of the ringing phones suddenly stopped. Silence filled the station. A printer near the reception desk suddenly activated by itself. Paper slowly slid out. Marcus grabbed it carefully. His face darkened immediately. The paper contained a police death report. Victim names filled the page. Marcus Hale, Officer Daniels, Officer Ramirez, all listed as deceased. Time of death, 4:44 a.m. That time had not happened yet. Ramirez noticed another room nearby, the evidence archive. Rows of case files lined the shelves inside. Marcus opened one carefully. The report described a murder from next week. Every detail was complete. Victim names, crime scene photos, witness statements. Cases that had not happened yet already existed here. Daniels slowly regained consciousness behind them. What happened? Marcus helped him stand. Daniels looked around the copied station in disbelief. Then he noticed something on the wall. Security camera monitors. Several screens showed different parts of the station. One screen displayed the front entrance. A team of officers walked through the door. Marcus stared in horror. The officers on the screen were them. Same clothes, same faces. But the footage timestamp showed 3 days earlier. Daniels whispered weakly. They got here before us. The 3 officers stood frozen before the monitor screens. Their doubles moved through the copied station calmly. Marcus watched himself speaking with another version of Daniels. The footage looked completely normal, like ordinary officers starting another shift. Ramirez stepped closer to the screen. That's impossible. Then another recording appeared automatically. The doubles were arguing violently inside the evidence room. One version of Marcus slammed papers across a desk. Another Daniels pointed a gun at someone off camera. The timestamp showed yesterday. Daniels shook his head slowly. They've been here for days. Marcus opened the security archive beside the monitors. More recordings filled the system, dozens of them. Every recording showed another version of their team. Some screamed at each other. Some ran through the hallways in panic. Others simply vanished from the footage completely. Then Ramirez found one final video. The timestamp read 20 minutes ago. Marcus pressed play carefully. The screen showed another version of Marcus standing directly in front of the camera. Blood stained his uniform. His eyes looked exhausted. The double leaned closer toward the lens. If you're watching this, it means you made it inside. Nobody spoke. The double continued quietly. You think you're the originals? He laughed weakly. So did we. The recording glitched violently for a second. Screaming echoed somewhere off camera. The double looked terrified now. Don't trust the reflections. A loud gunshot exploded through the recording. Blood splattered across the camera lens. The video ended instantly. Daniels backed away from the monitor. No. Ramirez noticed movement near the hallway outside. Footsteps. Slow footsteps approaching the station. Marcus raised his weapon immediately. The footsteps stopped just beyond the doorway. Then someone whispered softly from the darkness. Marcus. The voice sounded exactly like his own. Fear spread through the room instantly. Daniels aimed his flashlight toward the hallway. Nothing stood there. But another monitor suddenly switched on by itself. Live footage appeared on the screen. The camera showed the 3 officers standing inside the monitor room, but behind them stood 3 shadowy figures, their doubles, watching silently. Marcus spun around instantly. The hallway behind them was empty. Nobody stood there. But the monitor still showed the shadowy doubles watching them. Ramirez stepped backward nervously. They're here. Then the station lights dimmed suddenly. A low buzzing sound filled the building. Footsteps echoed through the empty hallways again. Slow, deliberate, closer every second. Daniels pointed toward the reception area. Someone stood there now, an old man wearing a dark coat. His grey hair hung over tired eyes. He leaned quietly against the front desk like he belonged there. Marcus raised his weapon. Who are you? The old man smiled faintly. You already know. Ramirez stepped forward carefully. How did you get in here? The old man ignored the question. Instead, he looked around the station slowly. They always build this place the same way. Marcus frowned. What place? The old man pointed toward the walls around them. The reflection. Nobody understood him. The old man sighed heavily. This building feeds on hidden things. Daniels shook his head angrily. You're insane. The old man stared directly at him. You lied about the Monroe shooting. Daniels froze instantly. Marcus slowly looked toward him. Daniels avoided his eyes. The old man continued calmly. You said the suspect reached for a gun, Daniels whispered weakly. He did. The old man smiled sadly. No. Silence filled the station. Ramirez stepped backward now, too. The old man looked toward Marcus next. You buried evidence to protect Brennan. Marcus's jaw tightened. You don't know what happened. I know exactly what happened. The old man slowly walked through the station. The building creates reflections from guilt. He touched one of the walls softly. Every lie becomes another version of you. Marcus stared at him carefully. You're saying those things out there? The old man nodded. They are born from the truth you tried to hide. A loud crash suddenly echoed from deeper inside the station. Glass shattered violently. Then came screaming, human screaming. Marcus raised his weapon again. The old man remained perfectly calm. They found each other, Daniels whispered nervously. Who? The old man slowly smiled. The originals. The screaming grew louder through the station halls. Marcus rushed toward the sound. Ramirez and Daniels followed close behind. The old man remained standing near the front desk. He did not try to stop them. The hallway lights flickered violently overhead. Doors slammed shut one after another. Somewhere nearby, men were fighting. Marcus reached the interrogation rooms first. Blood stained the walls outside. One of the doors hung broken from its hinges. Inside the room stood another Marcus. His uniform was torn and soaked with blood. The double slowly lifted his head. Their eyes locked instantly. Daniels whispered in shock, "Oh God!" The double Marcus looked exhausted, but his expression carried something colder. Disappointment. You finally made it. Marcus aimed his weapon carefully. "Stay where you are." The double laughed softly. "You still pretending to be the hero?" Ramirez looked between them nervously. The double stepped closer. "You told Brennan to destroy the evidence." Marcus's hands tightened around the gun. "That case was closed." "No." The double's voice grew darker. "You closed it." Flashbacks slammed into Marcus's mind instantly. Rain falling outside a warehouse years earlier. Officer Brennan standing over a dead witness. A gun shaking in his hand. Marcus hiding the security footage afterward. Daniels stared at Marcus in disbelief. "You covered it up?" Marcus stayed silent. The double nodded slowly. "There it is." Ramirez lowered his weapon slightly now. Fear filled his face. How many lies are hiding in this place? The station lights suddenly exploded above them. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Emergency red lights activated instantly. Sirens began screaming through the building. The copied station started shaking violently. Cracks spread across the ceiling. Dust rained onto the floor. Daniels stumbled backward. The building is collapsing. The double Marcus stepped closer through the red light. "You can still tell the truth." Marcus stared at his own face. Then another voice echoed behind them. Ramirez's double emerged from the darkness holding a shotgun. Blood covered his hands. Daniels slowly turned. More shadows appeared deeper in the hallway. Their doubles, watching silently, waiting. The hallway shook violently around them. Concrete cracked above their heads. Emergency lights painted the station in deep red shadows. Marcus aimed his weapon toward the approaching doubles. Nobody moved. The copies simply stared at them silently. Ramirez whispered nervously, "What do we do?" The double Marcus answered first. "Leave." Daniels frowned. "You're just letting us go." The double slowly shook his head. "Only one version leaves alive." Silence filled the hallway again. Then the station lights died completely. Darkness swallowed everyone. A gunshot exploded instantly. Daniels screamed. Marcus grabbed him and pulled him through the hallway. More gunshots erupted behind them. The doubles chased after them through the dark station. Flashlights bounced wildly across broken walls. Ramirez kicked open a side door. "The tunnel!" The officers sprinted back toward the underground corridor. Heavy footsteps thundered behind them. Marcus risked one glance backward. Their doubles were gaining on them fast. The tunnel walls trembled violently. Dust poured from the ceiling pipes. Daniels nearly slipped on the wet floor. Marcus pulled him forward again. "Hurry!" A deafening roar echoed behind them. Part of the tunnel collapsed instantly. Concrete crushed two of the chasing doubles beneath it. But the others kept coming. The officers finally reached the mirror chamber again. Most of the mirrors had shattered completely now. Broken reflections covered the floor like ice. Ramirez pointed toward the far exit. "The apartment door is there." The doubles entered the chamber behind them. Marcus froze suddenly. One of the doubles looked terrified instead of violent. It was Daniels's copy, the same prisoner they had found earlier. He stared directly at Marcus. "You still don't understand." Daniels aimed his weapon at him instantly. "Stay back." The prisoner slowly raised his hands. "You're killing the wrong people." Marcus hesitated. The prisoner stepped closer carefully. "You think you're the originals because you remember being outside." Marcus's breathing slowed. "What are you saying?" The prisoner pointed toward the apartment exit. "The real team already escaped days ago." Daniel shook his head violently. "No." The prisoner's voice cracked with fear. "You're the reflections now." Silence crushed the chamber. Marcus stared at his own shaking hands. Then the apartment door ahead slowly creaked open by itself. Rain and police sirens echoed faintly from outside. Freedom stood only a few steps away, but nobody knew which version deserved to leave. Rain poured through the open apartment doorway. Police sirens flashed outside the building. Marcus stared at the exit in silence. The prisoner Daniels slowly stepped backward into the shadows. "You already know the truth." Daniels raised his weapon again. "You're lying." The prisoner looked exhausted. "Then why can't you remember entering the building?" Nobody answered him. Marcus tried to remember the lobby clearly, the staircase, the third floor. But the memories felt broken now, like pieces of someone else's life. A deep cracking sound thundered through the chamber. The underground ceiling began collapsing around them. Ramirez panicked instantly. "We have to move." Another section of concrete crashed beside the mirrors. Marcus grabbed Daniels and pulled him toward the apartment exit. The surviving doubles disappeared into the darkness behind them. None tried to stop them now. The three officers stumbled back into apartment 307. The old abandoned room shook violently around them. Walls cracked open. Dust filled the air. Marcus kicked the apartment door open. Cold rain struck his face immediately. Outside, dozens of police cars surrounded the building. Officers rushed toward them in shock. A captain grabbed Marcus's shoulders. "What happened in there?" Marcus looked back toward the apartment doorway. The entire building groaned like something alive. Then silence returned. The lights inside Ashmore Apartments went dark completely. Daniel sat against a police car trying to breathe normally. Ramirez wiped blood from his face silently. Nobody spoke about what happened underground. Then Marcus noticed something strange. Daniels leaned beside the police car window, but no reflection appeared in the glass. Marcus slowly looked up at him. Daniels smiled faintly. Not nervous, not afraid, a knowing smile. Marcus felt cold, fear spread through his chest. Before he could speak, Daniels walked toward an ambulance. Rain swallowed him into the crowd of officers outside. 3 weeks later, another emergency call reached dispatch. A terrified woman whispered through static. "They're inside the walls." The dispatcher froze instantly after hearing the address. Ashmore Apartments. A new police team arrived outside the abandoned building that night. Rain hammered the streets exactly like before. The officers climbed toward apartment 307 carefully. The door stood slightly open already. One officer pushed it wider. The entire team froze in horror. Inside the apartment stood Marcus, Daniels, and Ramirez. Their uniforms were stained dark with blood. They stared silently from inside the room, smiling.